and welcome here to TalkFCB, and welcome back to the channel here today, guys, where of course we are going to be building up to this weekend's action as Barca will travel to San Mamés to face Athletic Club. And the big question is going to be, how do they respond from the midweek clash against Atletico Madrid, where the performance was very, very positive, but it was physically and mentally taxing for the team. So today we're going to be talking about the knock-on effects maybe of that game, and we also have to talk about the latest young, exciting talent from La Masia, who may be about to get some first-team minutes. Flick today was full of praise for him, and it's coming up. So let's get to it. Because indeed, guys, it is another big weekend for Barca in La Liga here. We are travelling to San Mamés to face Athletic Club, which is always a tricky game. You know, you're never ever going to come into a fixture like this and think, oh, well, that's a walk in the park. That's an easy place to go. No matter what form Athletic are in, San Mamés is always going to be quite an intimidating place to go. And in terms of the title race, I mean, it's going to be interesting this weekend, the way that Barca do approach it. Because coming into the weekend, we have a 4-point gap right now over Real Madrid. And let's not forget, you know, there's not too many games to go. We are in a very, very handsome position right now in terms of the title race. But what makes things more interesting, in my opinion, is that Real Madrid, they play tonight. And they have a tricky game as well. They are away to Celta Vigo. They're going to Balaidos, which is another one of those games where you'd never say, oh, well, that's going to be an easy 3 points. You know, Real Madrid, I've got no doubt tonight, they're going to have a hard game against Celta Vigo. And could that also shape our weekend? Because let me just say it right now. If Real Madrid drop points tonight, suddenly then this game for Barca, ahead of the Champions League against Newcastle, you know, there's a little bit more leeway there again. Because I'm still thinking personally here all about the Champions League. At the end of the day, the games coming up against Newcastle, they are the biggest games currently of our season. We want to have a deep Champions League run. We like the way the draw has come out for us here. We know that it's possible that we have a good run. That's why we have to get it right against Newcastle. And that is why maybe this weekend, we might, and we maybe should, see a few changes from Flick. Because make no mistake about it, guys. Like I say, the biggest question coming into this weekend is, how do we follow up that performance against Atletico Madrid? Because on Tuesday, in my opinion, it was a spectacular performance from Barca. I think every single one of us exited that game there. We exited the Copa del Rey, but we exited the game with a lot of hope, with a lot of excitement, with a lot of pride about what our team had produced. But now, is it a quick turnaround? Because the players gave everything, you know, at the end of the game, they were collapsing there out there on the field. They were exhausted. How much did that performance take out of the team? And is that another reason why you do need to make a few changes? Now, I would just say, on that side of things here, the only consolation I would have is that also in midweek, Athletic Club were in action. They actually played one day later than us in the Copa del Rey semi-finals, and they too were eliminated by their big rivals, Real Sociedad. 2-0 it was on aggregate there. So Athletic, they've not had the whole week off. You know, they haven't had much rest either coming into this game, and that could certainly help us, in my opinion. And what I would also say about Athletic is, they haven't been great this season. I mean, right now they're in 9th in La Liga. It's been a very, very average campaign. They have been quite boring to watch, I would say, at times. It really does feel quite stale there now with Valverde, with the same group of players, of course. Athletic right now, they're just not really an exciting up-and-coming team as it is this season. They've improved maybe slightly over the last few games. You know, they've got a few wins in there. They scored maybe a few more goals than they had been. So they're always going to be a threat. But it is a team that we can beat. It is a team here that we are still the big favourites against, because throughout the season, they have been underwhelming. However, guys, speaking of La Liga, thinking here about La Liga, maybe the most surprising news of the day, the month, maybe even the year, today, have La Liga done something good? Have they actually done something? Have they made an announcement here? Have they innovated and actually done something interesting? I mean, surely not. This is La Liga. But wait, they might have done, because La Liga announced today, and I think it's really cool, I genuinely do, for the first time ever, they will host a retro match day. That will actually be coming there between the 10th and the 13th of April. That happens to be my birthday weekend. Thank you, La Liga, for doing something interesting for my birthday. I really, really appreciate that. You must be thankful for all the good things I've said about you. But anyway, yeah, on that weekend, every team is going to be wearing retro kits, vintage jerseys on that weekend, and I think that's going to look so cool there. You've got every single club buying into this here. Now, right now, firstly, we don't know if Real Madrid are taking part. It doesn't look like they are. Real Madrid, they don't want to have fun. It's not been a fun season for them. They said, oh, well, no, we're just not doing it. So Real Madrid might not be doing that. Barca, apparently, it might have come too late here, the announcement, apparently, to get everything sorted to wear a retro jersey. Maybe they won't actually take part in it as such, but they're going to be involved in the weekend, though. They're going to, maybe have some retro vintage branding around the stadium. Maybe, I don't know what's going to happen. But Barca, they're going to be involved, but maybe not wearing the retro shirt. But everybody else, I think it's going to be awesome. And I think that is a cool thing that we don't really see in football. You see it maybe in other leagues. You see it sometimes, having theme nights there in American sports. I think it's a cool thing. And, yeah, let me know, guys, what you make there of that La Liga announcement. But back to the job in hand. And certainly in terms of the weekend, I think there's going to be big emphasis here at Barca on the fullback areas. There's going to be no Jules Koundé, there's going to be no Alejandro Balde, and of course now, with those two out injured, you've really got to do your best to protect João Cancelo. Flick spoke in his press conference today about how much we are going to need him right now, and he also heavily praised what we've seen from Cancelo over the last few games. He needs to keep that going here. We are now suddenly very dependent on him, and of course Eric Garcia, his versatility, it's going to be required in the latter stages of the season. Now, in my opinion here, Pedri, he should not be starting this game at the weekend. Now, I know he's a magician. He's an absolutely brilliant player to watch, and you always want to see him. But the way that he looked at the end of the game against Atleti, probably he shouldn't have played that whole game. He shouldn't have really been out there for 90 minutes. We were already pushing it. You can't do that again now this weekend. In my opinion here, as hard as it may be, Pedri should not be starting this match. You've got to take care of him. You can't keep pushing players to the edge. Flick actually spoke in his press conference today and basically said, look, we've got to talk a lot more with the medical team. We've got to understand here what is happening. We're having a few more injuries now. We're having some serious ones as well coming through. This is not the time to be having injury problems. So Barca right now, they need to be proactive. They need to be looking after the players. And that is why we may have a brand new talent here in the first team, emerging, getting some minutes. He genuinely could this weekend. I am talking about Xavi Espa. He is a player who Flick today, he was glowing, absolutely glowing in his praise of him there. He even compared him to Phillip Lahm. I mean, that is serious praise right there coming from Hansi Flick, somebody, of course, who knew Lahm very, very well, understood his influence on the game, his intelligence as well. And he said, look, when I see him playing, there's a lot of similarities there. And he also spoke about the fact that he's very versatile. He could play as a number 6, or he could play as a number 2. And it's very possible here that he could become a fullback option. He could be somebody who slots in, who gets a few minutes as the season goes on, and in midfield as well. If we need help there, he can also play in that position too. So certainly keep a look out for young Xavi, 18 years old. We've seen a pretty special Xavi emerge from La Masia before. Could it be about to happen again? Flick is excited about him. That makes me excited about him too. And I just think right now, guys, overall here, looking at the weekend, looking at this game, important to get the win. Obviously, if we can get the 3 points, if we can take another step towards the league title, that is what we want to do. But above everything else, take care of the players. Don't take risks in this game. It is not worth that. Our priority is the Champions League. We have Newcastle on Tuesday, and in my opinion, this weekend, do everything in your power to get ready, and then come into that game to be able to play at the peak level, the best level that we can, like we saw on Tuesday. You can't do that every game. You can't do that every few days. You've got to pick your moments, and our moment, in my opinion, it is on Tuesday at St. James's Park, guys. So let me know in the comments down below, do you agree with that? Or would you be, focusing on this game more than any other? Would you be just going into it game by game? Would you not be looking ahead right now to the Champions League? Let me know what your thoughts are ahead of this weekend. What are your predictions? And do you think we could see a few new faces emerging in the lineup, guys? I will see you, of course, throughout the weekend for reaction to this game. But thank you indeed for the great support, for all of you being here. But until next time, as always, Vesca, El Barca.